Hi, I'm Mike Wills. I've been at Pathfinder for nearly 50 years. I've seen the ups and downs of the industry, and I'm not charging anyone for this interview. I started in the industry and I started with Pathfinder in 1983. But before that, I was working for a caravan company building camper vans. So, if you put that into it, I've been in the market for maybe nearly 60 years. So it's been a long time. Well, Pathfinder started in 1958 by two brothers. They were the Horton brothers, Tony and Jerry. And Tony was a squadron leader in the war, and Jerry was in the army. And it was always argued about the name of Pathfinder, where it came from. Because when Jerry came back from the war, he came back via America. So they said, was Pathfinder named after the Pathfinder Indians, or was it named after the Pathfinder bombers, where Tony was the squadron leader? And the brothers, to their dying day, never let on which was which. They always kept it a secret as to what they were doing. When Jerry came back from the war via America, he saw mobile homes over in America, and the brothers owned about 40 acres of land outside of Exeter where they had caravans on. So Jerry's bright idea was, hang on a minute, we could put these on for people to live in on the outside of Exeter. And they wanted quality, but all they could find then was caravans. They couldn't actually find anything that was more livable to the quality they wanted. So that's when they decided to start manufacturing themselves. And they started very slowly. They did a design, and they got a company, they called it Hurley's Boats, very famous for building the sailing boats. And they got them to build the first Pathfinders down in Plymouth. And at the time, they were all 8 foot wide. You couldn't get anything more than 8 foot wide because the laws meant you couldn't transport anything over 8 foot wide on the roads. When the law changed to 10 foot wide, that's when Jerry started designing 10 foot wide mobile homes. And the company, the original Pathfinder company, was called 10 Wide. And it was called 10 Wide. Even when I purchased it in 1983, it was still called 10 Wide Limited. And that was far outdated because by then there was twin homes and everything. So the first thing I did was change the name to Pathfinder because I thought that had the right ring to it. And we were based on Pathfinder Village on the edge of Exeter. So it seemed the right thing to do to call it Pathfinder. When I took it over in 1983, we changed the name to Pathfinder, and we were then building one home a month. And we only built them to go on to Pathfinder Village, because I took the company over by, I didn't mean to take the company over. It was offered to me, and I sort of had a go at it and thought, we'll just have the crack and see what it was like. So when I took it on, it was just literally building one home a month to go on to Pathfinder Village as and when they needed it to their design. And they were very specific about their design. At one point, it would have been way ahead of its time, but by the time I came along in 1983, it was a bit dated and not what the market wanted. So I had a battle with them for me to change the designs. As I say, I came in not knowing anything about park homes. I was working for a camper company building campers. I would do all the internal trimming. And so to come in to take on a company, I went to night school and did a design course. And I also went to night school and did an accountancy course. And at that time, around 1983, the computers had kicked off and AutoCAD. So very quickly I went and did a AutoCAD course and then started to design my own homes. And it was, and the original designs was, we couldn't afford to do a brochure. So I would do a floor plan on the drawing board. And then in the evenings, I would sit down while I was watching telly and paint it on an easel. So I'd actually do the painting, and then I'd take the painting out to parks with the floor plan and say, would you like to buy this home? thinking that no one would touch it, but a couple of people said, I like the idea and I like the way you're doing this. No one's ever done it before, so yeah, we'll have it.
When I first started with Pathfinder, we were based at Pathfinder Village, a little warehouse, well, not warehouse, a workshop at Pathfinder Village. Very small in scale compared to where we are now. We could only build one lodge in the workshop at a time. We had a smaller workshop to the side. So it was very, very small scale compared to what we are now.
And from there, it started progressing, started learning as you go. And those orders, we went, because I'd go and see the customers, the service that we offered, so the customers would move into their home. I'd personally go down with a bottle of wine, and to say the drawing, bunch of flowers that when they moved in, sit down with them, snag the home with them, make sure that everything was correct. And that service meant that the park owners had a comparatively worry-free life as far as after sales was concerned, and they'd order more homes.
When your memory sort of think, oh, that was quite a big area, but when you look back on it, it's such a small place that we used. And to produce, how many we produced, when I first started in 99, like I say, it was only about three or 4 months, 2 or 3 a month maybe. When we left Ted Benson Mary at Pathfinder Village, when we left there, we produced, I think, 4 or 5. Now that doesn't sound a lot. I always remember Mike coming in sort of saying, having a meeting with us all. Obviously we were a much smaller, group. There was only about a dozen of us there, saying, we've got to increase production, and everyone saying, no, we can't do that. We can't go from two or 3 to 4 or 5. For us it was quite a big jump for the amount of people and the size of the what we had to build them in. But we did it. We did do it at the end. We nothing had changed. The workforce hadn't increased, but purely by changing how we did things and the scheduling and things like that, we managed to increase production. And it's amazing when you look back at how, just by jiggling a few things around, that you can do that. And we're sort of, in some ways, facing sort of the same challenges here as well.
It went up to 4 a month. Then we went on to 6 a month. And when it really took off was we moved factories because we were too big for the factory we were in. And we moved down to Heathfield, where the factory is today. We had one factory there, and I wrecked my knee playing squash. And I was out for 3 months with my leg up, and I was bored as hell. So I decided to phone all my customers. So every day I just phoned all my customers and phoned all my customers. And at the same time, quite by accident, the rental market started, the holiday rentals. So before then, you could only rent a tin caravan type home anywhere in the country if you went on holiday. Freezing cold in the winter, boiling hot in the summer, and very basic. And then all of a sudden the lodge appeared. And of course we were at the forefront of that because we did timbered clad homes. And as I was phoning around, I phoned a couple of these companies that were doing rentals, and they'd say, oh yeah, we like your stuff, we'll put an order in for 10. So I just sent the order through to work, and 3 days later, I phoned another company, they said, oh yeah, we can order 5. And then all of a sudden, the other director said, what the f do you think you're doing? He said, you can't do this. He said, we've got the capacity to build 8 in a month. You've sold 40 lodges in 3 months and promised everyone delivery. He said, and we just can't do it. We haven't got room. And that particular week, I was coming down to the workshop or the factory because my leg was getting better. And the factory across the road I saw was up for rent. And I phoned the people and said, well, do you want to sell that factory? And they said, yes. So all over Christmas, that was I took it on the 23rd of December, and by the 5th of January, when all the guys started back to work, I'd been in, knocked walls down, got it all ready to produce, and it all stacked up with factories. So when the other director came in, I said, come across the road. Came across the road, I said, there you go, now build the lodges. On the residential side, we've always traditionally followed the housing market. So if the if the housing market starts to slow down, then the park home market starts to slow down instantly. You're talking, if it's 1 week, the next week the park home market slows down. And the reason for that is that a lot of people that move into park homes are people that have worked all their lives. They've got their property, maybe worth £500,000-600,000. They maybe have a little bit of a mortgage left on it, if any at all, and they get to the age of 55, 50 years old, and they go, why am I doing this? I'm sat on a £600,000 house that's paid for. I could buy a park home, and if I buy a park home, I can buy that for £250,000 to £300,000 for a top of the range, and I can pocket £300,000 and retire. And that is the vast part of the market where people are looking for a life change, where they can take things a lot easier. They don't have to work till they're 65, and that's a big market. So when the housing market dries up, then those people drop out the market because they've got their property. They can sit there until the market changes. And when the market changes and starts to come back, those people will still come back, because they've not gone away, they're still there, but they will come back when they can realise the value of their property. They'll come back and sell their properties, and then start buying park homes. And that is now starting to pick up as we speak. We're seeing a big improvement in that market.
I think, we work on so many projects, and planning on doing more and more as we kind of go through the next couple of years. And I'm so excited to kind of capture that and document that as we're doing now, and hopefully, pay homage to our near 70 years of history. Pull on experience from the likes of the people that you've probably heard talking before me, and but kind of drive for something new, for something better. I think that's important.
I can see the industry picking up quite a bit with the staycation thing coming back round, with a lot of issues going on around the world at the minute. I think that's putting people off taking holidays abroad. So I think that's going to give the industry a bit of a boom, because people are going to want to stay in the UK more. So having a luxury lodge to stay in is the perfect family choice, really. That you've got more space. Caravans are great for cheapy, but a lot of people that are going on holiday now want that luxury feel, and we can offer that in a lodge. So
I think the industry itself will pick up, because like any industry, there's ups and downs. But where there's where it kind of levels out at the bottom, it's allowed us to create the 2026 models and focus on the things which you never really have time to focus on during the time when it's peak level trade and everyone wants homes and you have a logbook of 3 years. It's allowed us to focus on the tiny bits, the quality of the homes, the bits that were overlooked, and now we can basically iron out any creases and make the home as perfect as possible. I was just upstairs with Mike designing a pod, and you can see a difference between the idea that I would have and the idea that Mike would have, and the ages differences between the two. There's the experience of knowing what people will want, and then there's just me who likes to think that they know what people want.
And the processes have changed. We have changed quite drastically how we used to work to how we do now, and it's streamlined processes. There's a lot of stuff that's been cut out and that was kind of dead wood. We don't need to be doing those things. It was taking up additional time that wasn't needed, and it's given us more time to focus on the important parts to support the business.
And I think it's followed being ahead of those trends.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing you've done, which to start with I looked at and I thought, I'm not really sure about that, is the spas.
Yeah.
And when you first said about the spas, I thought, oh, do we really want to be doing that? You know, and that's just me being an old fuddy-duddy.
Yeah.
You know, this is the way you should do things. And then we're starting to do those spas, and we're putting them into our homes. And as that's happening, all of a sudden, on social media and on the news and on different things, you're seeing all these spas popping up everywhere and things happening with spas. You think, well, again, you know, that's where we were ahead of the game.
Yeah.
You know, that's and that wasn't me being ahead of the game. That was you and the guys being ahead of the game.
Yeah.
That you've actually got that, and you're in there now, and you can be doing the spas, and then something else will evolve in the future.
And we've been like developing that for a little while now, and you know, had various talks with host seasons, and we had them down here, and kind of like the big players with lots of data that can go, you know, these are the things that people want. And obviously hot tubs are still like up there with, you know, the thing. But saunas are kind of getting there quickly and are up there with it, and having that personal touch. And I think being able to combine that with the bespoke build allows whoever it is to come to us and create whatever it is that they want, and go, you know, I want this with a sauna, I want that with a hot tub, I want these with these things. And we can do that and kind of accommodate for that. So you get the rental, they get the kind of thing that they would have as standard, but they have the kind of wellness side to it as well.
And I do think when one of the things, some companies have nearly done it, but not quite, but I think is going to happen very soon, is you're going to have some of these companies where you'll have the spa lodge, and then you will go outside, and it won't be on a decking like all the lodges are normally traditionally decked. You'll go outside, down a couple of steps to your sauna area, and that'll be a enclosed area where they'll have the sauna and a plunge pool, so you have that all-inclusive spa experience in there. And you know, that's going to be exciting to see that, because whichever park comes up with that first is going to take the market. Everything will be fully booked.